How often do you question the portrayal of Islam in Hollywood movies? It's a question that may not cross our minds frequently, but it's a conversation worth having. Today, we delve into the portrayal of Islam in Hollywood, a narrative that has been, more often than not, skewed and misrepresented. Hollywood, the global powerhouse of cinema, has a significant influence on crafting cultural narratives and shaping public perceptions. For decades, it has played a pivotal role in how the Western world perceives and understands Islam. However, the portrayal has been riddled with stereotypes, inaccuracies, and often a clear bias. From the turban-wearing villain to the oppressed woman, from the terrorist to the fanatic. These are the images that have become synonymous with the depiction of Muslims in Hollywood. It's a portrayal that has reduced a diverse faith, followed by over 1 billion people worldwide, to simplistic and harmful stereotypes. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a Muslim character in a Hollywood film that wasn't tied to terrorism, war, or oppression? This skewed representation has led to a significant impact on how the Western world perceives Islam and its followers. It has bred fear, misunderstanding, and prejudice, creating a chasm between us and them. But it's not just about the portrayal on the screen, it's about the narrative that's being spun off screen. It's about the voices that are silenced, the stories that are untold, and the true essence of a faith that's been overshadowed by a narrative of fear and misunderstanding. This journey will take us from the early days of Hollywood through the Cold War era, the post-9/11 narrative, and into the present day. We'll explore how the portrayal of Islam has been manipulated to suit certain agendas and the impact of this misrepresentation on our society. As we proceed, we will uncover how Hollywood's portrayal of Islam has evolved over the years. Buckle up, it's going to be a thought-provoking ride. To understand the present, we must journey to the past. So let's rewind to the early years of Hollywood, when the film industry was still budding and the portrayal of Islam was just beginning to take form. This era stretches from the early 1900s to the 1950s, a time when the world was less connected and cultural understanding was often limited. The silver screen became a portal, giving audiences glimpses into far-off lands and unfamiliar cultures. However, these depictions were often shaped by the lens of Hollywood, rather than presenting an authentic representation of the cultures they depicted. Islam was no exception. Consider one of the earliest cinematic depictions of Islam, The Sheik, a silent film from the Roaring '20s. It painted a romanticized image of an exotic Arab world, but it also perpetuated harmful stereotypes, depicting Arabs as passionate yet uncivilized beings. The protagonist, an Arab sheik, was portrayed as a desert-dwelling, horse-riding, passionate man, a stereotype that Hollywood would continue to recycle for decades to come. As the years rolled on, the representation of Islam didn't improve. Films like Casablanca and Lawrence of Arabia continued to portray Muslims as either villains or subservient characters, reinforcing the idea of a dangerous and mysterious East. These early films rarely showed the diverse realities of Muslim lives, instead opting for a narrow, often negative portrayal. This pattern continued into the 1950s. The Black Tent and Desert Legion are just two examples of films that reinforced the image of the Muslim other, creating an us versus them dichotomy that persists even today. The portrayal of Islam in these early years set a precedent for future representations. It's a legacy that we still grapple with now, as we strive to challenge, change, and rewrite these narratives. But to do so, we must first understand the roots of these portrayals, and that understanding begins here, in the early years of Hollywood and Islam. The Cold War era marked a significant shift in Hollywood's portrayal of Islam. As the world divided into two ideological camps, the silver screen mirrored this divide, with Islam often being used as a tool to highlight the other. This period saw a rise in films where Muslims were depicted as sinister, untrustworthy figures, a stark contrast from the exotic, romanticized portrayals of earlier years. This shift in narrative was no accident. It was fueled by geopolitical tensions, the need to create a common enemy, and the desire to justify foreign policies. The Muslim world, richly diverse and complex, was reduced to a single, monolithic entity, often associated with fear and hostility. These portrayals had a far-reaching impact, shaping public perception and reinforcing stereotypes. They created an us versus them narrative that continues to resonate even today. The Cold War era laid the groundwork for a more biased portrayal of Islam in Hollywood. The tragic events of 9/11 brought about a seismic shift in Hollywood's portrayal of Islam. The aftermath of these attacks saw a new era in film and television, one where the Muslim identity was often tied to terrorism, adding a new layer of negative stereotypes. The narrative shifted dramatically. Islam was no longer just misunderstood, it was now feared. This fear was mirrored in movies and TV shows, casting Muslim characters in roles that were, more often than not, associated with violence and extremism. Take, for instance, the film The Kingdom, released in 2007. The movie tells the story of an FBI team investigating a terrorist bombing in Saudi Arabia. The plot is awash with Muslim characters who are either directly involved in acts of terror or indirectly linked to them. Another example is the popular television series 24, that aired from 2001 to 2010. The show often depicted Muslims as terrorists, contributing to a culture of fear and suspicion. The series became synonymous with the ticking time bomb scenario, using the threat of impending doom to justify extreme measures. Then there's Homeland, a series that ran from 2011 to 2020. It not only cast Muslims as terrorists, but also portrayed the entire Middle East as a hotbed of violence and unrest. The show was heavily criticized for its one-dimensional portrayal of Muslims and the Middle East. These representations have real-world consequences. They not only fuel Islamophobia, but also perpetuate harmful stereotypes that affect the everyday lives of Muslims around the world. In a post-9/11 world, this portrayal has been criticized for being biased and one-dimensional, reinforcing harmful stereotypes instead of challenging them. Post-9/11 Hollywood has often been criticized for having a biased portrayal of Islam. The industry has the power to shape perceptions and influence public opinion. It's high time it uses this power responsibly and portrays Islam and Muslims with the complexity and nuance that they deserve. In recent years, there has been a growing call for a more balanced portrayal of Islam in Hollywood. This call isn't just a whisper in the wind, but a resounding echo reverberating through the marble halls of the film industry. It's a call for change, a call for empathy, and a call for understanding. In the face of this demand, some filmmakers have risen to the challenge. Films like The Big Sick and Moonlight have begun to paint a more nuanced picture of Muslim life. These movies, while not entirely devoid of conflict, showcase the human side of Islam, breaking away from the age-old stereotypes that have long been associated with this religion. Yet, it's not just about representation on the silver screen. It's about the stories that are told, the characters that are developed, and the narratives that are spun. It's about creating a space where Muslim voices can be heard, where their experiences can be shared, and where their identities can be explored in all their complexity and diversity. The importance of this balanced portrayal can't be overstated. When Islam is depicted in a more accurate and empathetic light, it helps to dissolve the barriers of misunderstanding that have been erected over decades. It fosters a sense of unity and interconnectedness, reminding us that beneath our different beliefs and customs, we are all part of the same human family. However, it's essential to remember that these are just the first steps on a long and winding road. There are still mountains to climb and rivers to cross. The industry as a whole must continue to strive for a more inclusive and representative portrayal of Islam. Filmmakers must continue to challenge the pre-existing stereotypes, and audiences must be open to seeing Muslims in roles beyond the villain or the victim. While there have been improvements, there is still a long way to go. The journey towards a more balanced portrayal of Islam in Hollywood has only just begun, and it's a journey that we must all undertake together, hand in hand. Now it's your turn to question the narratives you consume. We've journeyed through the lens of Hollywood's portrayal of Islam, a journey that has been far from balanced. It's high time we start challenging these narratives. The stories we're told shape our perceptions, our beliefs, our world. When these stories are skewed, so too are our views. It's not just about seeking out balanced portrayals of Islam. It's about seeking truth in all narratives. Let's not remain passive consumers. Let's be active seekers of the truth. Let's question. Let's research. Let's challenge. Let's spread awareness about this issue. Let's talk about it. The power of change lies within each one of us. Remember, every echo begins with a single voice. Let's ensure that our voices echo the truth, echo fairness, and echo understanding. If you're intrigued by the unconventional, Eager to challenge historical norms and ready to explore the charted, but with a different lens, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.